I've just opened this up and look at that. Oh. Okay, this is going to be awkward, hey? Today we have something a little bit different, and I am extremely excited. We're going to be taking a look at the brand new slim version of the PlayStation 5. Yes, a bit of a teardown video of my experience, what I think of it, taking it apart, how do I find it, and just go from there. What I will say is that this thing is hot off the press. The PlayStation 5 Slim has already come out in the US, but it's just arrived in the UK. I paid a total of £389 for this, and I opted for the disc-free version of the console. For those who don't know, with the PlayStation 5 Slim, you can actually purchase the disc drive later on down the line if you fancied it. Tronics Fix actually done a video recently with the PS5 Slim where he took a disc drive from another PS5 Slim console and put it into the original one, and all it needed was an update, which is an amazing move from Sony. The disc drives themselves are interchangeable with another console. Let's get a first look at what's inside this box. I'm going to be very careful with all this because I am going to be breaking the warranty sticker, which doesn't really count for anything. I'll be making sure that the console works, but then I will be selling it again. I bought this console purely for this video, and that's it, because I don't play on a PlayStation. I don't console game. I mainly use a PC. Model number is CFI 2016, and I've not actually had the pleasure of opening a PS5 yet from brand new. A lot of the PS5s I have are ones that I have repaired from faulty. So it's going to be a nice experience. So we have our power lead, we have a USB-C to USB-C cable, and a HDMI lead. Now this is going to feel good. It's a brand new DualSense PlayStation 5 controller. This is the older version of the PlayStation 5 controller. I'm just going to check the model numbers and make sure they're the same or if they're different at all. This one is a little bit more discoloured, as you can see. This one is model CFI-ZCT1W, and the one below it is exactly the same. So they haven't actually changed anything with the controllers, but it's really nice to have a brand new controller that I won't have for too much longer. I have to enjoy this experience whilst I can. In my opinion, this is actually so much smaller than the other console. But here it is. I mean, it's so light. Just completely unwrap it. Oh, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Immediately, what catches my eye is that we don't have the plastic vents that sit on top of the console. And to be honest with you, it's kind of nice not to have that because they attracted so much dust, and it could really ruin the aesthetic look of your PlayStation 5 if you allowed it to get dusty. So the fact that it doesn't have this, you're not really going to be able to see if your PlayStation 5 gets a little bit dusty. But in my opinion, it looks kind of clean. I don't know how I feel about how this is like glossy and this is matte. In my opinion, I think it might have been better if they just stuck with either matte or gloss as just one panel. They have removed one of the USB-A ports and they have replaced it with another USB-C port. I'm pretty sure as well that another nice feature is that you have the on button, but the disk drive button is now actually on the disk drive itself, which you can install, like I said earlier, later on down the line. So now just doing the cool bit and removing this sticker. Nice. One of the things I'm actually quite excited about today is I do want to just quickly check the circuit around the HDMI port and see if that is similar to the older models. The original PS5s, in my opinion, the HDMI ports were absolutely awful. The solder joints around it were really, really weak, and it made it very easy for someone who is moving their PS5 from maybe one room to another to actually break the port itself. So I'm wondering if they've added any sort of like, structural integrity to the port. Probably not, but worth a look. We've got the LAN port and then we've got two USB 3.0 sockets on the back. Size difference wise, PS5 Slim, PS5 Original. Look at that. I don't know the exact difference in the weight, but it is a considerable amount. If you are somebody who is taking your PS5 from, like I said before, one room to the other, or even from one house to your mate's house or something like that, having this is so much more portable. Being able to just pick this up and put it in a rucksack, you can't do that with the original PS5 unless you have a very big rucksack. So if you're somebody who travels a lot or something, this might actually be quite a viable option without the disk drive, bear in mind. Now I am going to completely wing this. I have seen some videos about how to take the sides off, but I'm just going to give it a play myself. And I can't remember what on those videos how they done it, so I need to be pretty careful, especially because I'm selling this, but I'm pretty sure they just pop, right? Yeah, it just pops. Look at that. Wow. And is it the same here as well? I think so. Yeah, it does. It just literally just clips off. That's really, really cool. And these are the little clips that we have on the panels. Completely different to the original PS5 cases. Look how big these are. Look how far they stick out. Whereas these are nice, subtle, little, small clips. How is that going to fare longevity-wise if people are taking these apart quite regularly? Are those clips going to be a little bit more fragile because the bigger ones look more robust? So here's the first time that I'm actually seeing inside this PlayStation 5 Slim. Before we dive into this any further, a quick word from our sponsor, PCBWay.
PCBWay are PCB specialists. From creating your own personal PCB, various sizes, different colours and complete customization, to sharing a project that you've created, PCBWay has it all. Leave comments on other people's projects or even download the Gerber files left by the author to give it a go yourself. They also have a gift store where you can purchase merchandise, soldering irons, multimeters and lots more. Bag yourself a sweet deal with PCBWay over the Christmas period. Make sure to keep an eye out on offers throughout December. Check out the link in the description for a $5 welcome bonus.
Another thing I really love about this so far is that when you put a PlayStation 5 original led down like this, there's quite a bit of like wiggle to it if you were to lie it down flat, because a big talking point with these consoles is the liquid metal compound that is used within them to cool the system. And if you have the console led flat, you have less of a risk of your console falling off somewhere, and also less of a risk of the liquid metal compound that is used inside the console to cool it going to places it shouldn't. Now with the PS5 Slim, I've got it flat and there is a little bit of give at the back, but from the front point of view, this isn't going anywhere. The fan on the original model usually comes with a metal shroud that kind of sits just above it and then screws into the chassis, but this console doesn't have that. The screws screw straight into the chassis on the fan itself. We have our good old trusty little warranty sticker, which isn't going to exist in a minute. This is the M.2 SSD cover, which is actually slightly different shape to the one of the original. And then probably one of the biggest notable changes is this connector here. This is where the disk drive is going to slot in if you were to purchase one. And the area for the disk drive, it just sits right here. And I'm pretty sure you just slot it in. Now, you could argue that, you know, you should never have any liquids around your console, but how much of an extra cost would it have been to Sony to just cover this up with a, you know, a little bit of spongy plastic or something, you know, because that is exposed. You have quite a lot of pins here that are going to be active all the time, receiving, you know, voltage and whatnot. So in the event that some liquid ingress was to get inside the console, and all I've done is removed, you know, those two plates that we have here, and if that was to happen, you could have some dangerous results. Again, on the original console, you would have the metal shroud here to cover up the SSD compartment, and you have a sticker that goes over the connector for the fan. So looking at it like that, you don't really have any exposed PCB motherboard parts. So that could be quite a common point of failure for us repair techs. I should probably power it on and just make sure it works before I start taking it apart. So let me do that quick. Little things to note as I'm going along and finding things out. Usually you have the HDMI port, which is right next to the power, but it's about halfway through the console now. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. All right, so let's turn it on. We have LED lights going all the way around the strip here. So I'm wondering if they're going to be in the same place or not. So by the looks of it, the LED light is only at the bottom of the console. Does it come on at the top after that goes to a white light? Because with a PlayStation, you should get a blue light and a white light. So we get the white light, which is down here, but we don't actually get anything up here. So why have they installed this LED plastic to go all the way up? Let's turn down the ISO so you can see that a little bit clearer. So we can see that we have the white light down here, but yeah, nothing up here. I wonder if that changes maybe when you're playing a game or something like that. I don't understand why they would have installed it all the way up. Sony don't like to waste materials. All right, so it turns on. We're on the home screen. I had to disable HDCP because of the fact you can't capture the HDMI input with Elgato with it enabled. If you wanted to see what software it comes with out of the box, I've not connected to the Wi-Fi or anything along those lines. You can see it on the screen now. Out of interest, I'm going to assume it's just the 2 beeps to turn it off. There's the first. And there's a second, yeah, exactly the same as the original model. There's probably going to be a bunch of other UK content creators making teardowns of this. I am in no way, shape or form an experienced professional. This is just essentially my own personal first looks. All right, so let's remove this little sticker here. Okay, so the connector itself isn't raised like before and surrounded by plastic. It's actually quite deep into the shell. Taking it out is fairly easy. It feels a lot easier to take out than the other ones. The screw formation and the screw size is actually identical to the original PS5. If you're a fan connoisseur, there's some details of this specific fan. Now these screws are going to be in different places than usual. We even have one that's down here, but again the same sort of screw length as the original PS5 for this position anyway. That one is different. Only one we have left is the warranty sticker. I'm going to try and keep it as aesthetically pleasing as I can, but it's coming off, so. We failed successfully. We still have the glue residue that's there, but I'm just going to stick this here for the time being. Got a big screw under the warranty sticker this time. Usually you'd have like the smaller ones. Okay, let's pop the hood. Comes off very, very easily. So immediately I'm noticing that the antenna wire is now wrapped around. Like, I just don't know why they didn't make that shorter, why they had to actually wrap it around. So it goes from this corner all the way around the plastic onto the heatsink shield that then wraps around here, a spaghetti loop, spaghetti junction, and then comes down and plugs into the motherboard down here. The antenna cables on the other models sit up here. So we're just going to take these out. They're not really held down very well with this tape. It literally just came off like that. Maybe it wasn't stuck down properly to begin with. Then we have this little sticky bit of foam, and that wraps around there, comes out there. There we go. And that just sits up there. Wobbly little heatsink. Let's carry on. One thing I will say is that when I'm putting a little bit of downwards pressure to get these screws out so I don't thread them, the chassis on the plastic actually bends quite a lot. So it's one thing to bear in mind, not to push down too hard, because you don't want to be snapping any of the plastic, that's for sure. It's a little observation. I imagine we're probably not going to see any repairs done to these within the first year or so, because they're all going to be covered by warranty. But you may have some people who don't have warranty for whatever reason, like this, like somebody who's taking it apart and then remove the sticker and selling it straight after, in which case, yeah, it's going to be very unlikely that we actually see any repairs on these for a while. Now, I'm not going to do any like cooling tests or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure Linus Tech Tips has a video on their channel about the volume of the actual fan, etc., you know, and how it performs from a cooling aspect. Ooh, this is a new one. Look at that, a first of its kind. We have a long silver screw, and that goes in just here. Wow. I don't know if you might not be able to see it, but there is a marking on this little cover here with some slits either side, so you'll be able to see which one that goes into. So far, on a scale of taking it apart, it seems to be okay. Pretty much identical, some small changes, but pretty much identical to the latest version of the PS5 original. And the model on the motherboard of that is 030 or 033. Now, we have to be really careful. We don't want to pull up from the heatsink, because that is just going to bend these pipes. So I'm trying to find the best way. This is, again, first time that I'm doing this. I'm just trying to find the best way of actually taking this up, making sure that I've just taken out all the screws, which I have. On the 033 model, you had a little bit of an indent around about the bottom right down here. The plastic definitely feels flimsier on these, you know. Definitely feels flimsier. What's annoying is that you have these little like strips that are actually stuck down to the metal part, which comes off with this. So you have to almost like pull this fabric up first, and then you've got a sticker underneath that you also need to pull off. So like two separate parts. I'm wondering if you could pull off. Yeah, okay, fine. So that's probably going to be the best place to lever it from. Yeah, so from the left up here, but you're gonna have to deal with these like sticky things. Okay, first look and first impressions. What do we have? We have the exact same connector down here, which I believe you literally just push down a little bit and then you can pull this cable out just like that. I think in Linus's video he was saying you have to like move it out and stuff, which you don't. You do just have to put some downwards pressure on the connector. It takes a while to get used to, and then you can just slot it out. I'll be trying to make comparisons as and when we go. The board here is specifically a 010, so the layout is going to be slightly different as is. However, it will be fine for a comparison purpose. Now, these caps aren't meant to be missing. It's just I've used this as a donor board. But we can see that out of the factory, we don't have as many caps here. We're actually missing 2 on the main power rail. That's the first thing I kind of see, minus a few capacitors as well, which I don't know why that is, because I'm pretty sure the Slim actually takes the same amount of power consumption as the original PS5. Again, covered by Linus in his video. The power supply itself is pretty much identical, just a different shape. Interestingly, we're going to head on over to the scope, but I think we have T8s here instead of Phillips, which is a first for the PS5 models. Yeah, look, that's a T8 screw bit. Interesting. We have the SSD controller IC surrounded by 2 actual SSD chips. I believe it's 3 on the original console. And if you're talking about size difference, as close as it possibly can be, that is the original PS5 motherboard, and that is the Slim. So again, a considerable amount smaller. Let's take the board out of the chassis. I wonder why they've replaced the Phillips screw with the T8 on the actual heatsink clamp itself. It'll be interesting to know like the thought process behind why they've changed it. We have some additional screws holding down the motherboard after I've taken off the metal heatsink cover. So we have this one up here. Now, is there any indications or marks to show that this goes in? There isn't, so that might catch a few people out. And then we have one down here as well. This one actually has a nice arrow on the motherboard to indicate that there's a screw that goes here. Oh, this bit pops off. Oh, and there is, okay, so there's an arrow on the motherboard up here as well to indicate that one goes there, but this actually pops off. This is again the M.2 cover. This pops off. Okay, so I think we're good to just try and lift this off now. Again, what makes it a little bit difficult is there's no way to try and get this out, but you can just pull from this bottom corner here and slowly lift. There we go, as long as we're careful. Again, liquid metal is not a nice thing to deal with. But then we have this little corner here. So I'm just going to grab my metal prying tool and slowly, there we go, just jiggle it up. Take it apart. Oh my gosh. Right, so I've just opened this console, and I'm not being funny. Look at the dry spot of the liquid metal. What? That's insane. Let me go under the scope. I've just opened this up and look at that. Trying to get a decent view for you guys to kind of put it into perspective, but that is appalling. Like, the liquid metal doesn't even look like it's been distributed properly across the heatsink. What? That's crazy. Look at this. That is absolutely disgusting to see. And then equally, looking at it on the actual die itself, look at it. It's just, that is bare. To give you an idea of what it should look like, let me just clean this up. So here I'm using isopropyl alcohol, and I'm just moving the liquid metal around. And I'm just going to put it all into a ball in the middle. I can't believe that. And you can see that the die of the heatsink here is spotless. So now let's just spread this liquid metal around, and I'll kind of give you an idea as to how it should look. I'm not a liquid metal connoisseur, but I've seen, I've repaired a lot of PS5s, and this is how it should look. We should have that smooth, almost liquid metal going over like that covers the whole die, not what's come out of the factory like that. Right, let's sort this liquid metal out quick on the actual die on the PCB as well, on the motherboard. Use exactly the same technique here, except this time we suck it up. Just like that. And the reason I'm taking this off is because I'm going to be moving the board around, turning it upside down, etc. So I don't want the risk of any liquid metal going anywhere it shouldn't. So let's have a look at a few comparisons then. Here we have the HDMI retimer. Now, this is made by Nuvoton. I don't think I've ever seen that. Nuvoton. I'm pretty sure the original, so this again is original PS5 board. This is made by Panasonic, the MN864739. Is that number the same? MN864739. Yeah, so is it the same chip then? Is Nuvoton part of Panasonic? I have no idea. Is the Southbridge IC the same? That's the question. So here we have SIE CXD90069. I'm pretty sure that is exactly the same. And this is the old board, CXD90061. Again, this is the new board, and it's 69 rather than 61, and it's GG. Old board is 61 GG. So I don't know if it is different. Potentially, this one was made in Taiwan. In the new board, it's also made in Taiwan. The foam and coating around the die where the liquid metal is stored is pretty much identical to the older boards as well. Sony sticking with that model. This is the old board, and you have the Wi-Fi IC separate to where the battery is on the opposite side of the board. But on the Slim, you have the battery, and then you have the Wi-Fi IC right next to it. Is that going to make it difficult to remove the Wi-Fi IC because you have this plastic here? Potentially, but you can always go in from the other side, which is probably recommended. On the other side of the Wi-Fi IC, we have the same lot of capacitors, maybe a few less than what we originally had on the older board, but we do have the plastic surrounding the antenna wire sockets literally right next to it, so it's going to be a little bit tough to remove that Wi-Fi. So you can cover them up, obviously, but that's not as easy as what it was before, in my opinion. Now, one of the things I'm most excited for, show me that HDMI port. How are we looking? Let's have a look. That is a pretty factory HDMI port. Shock. I mean, you can see that the solder hasn't come all the way over the pins. It doesn't have to. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't have to. It will work, and clearly it does. Just for the strength of it. I mean, you can see that a little bit of the solder has come over this pin here, but for the rest of them, these are going to be solid connections. However, what I would like to see is the solder just go over the top of them, because with a little bit of wiggle and play, they're going to break. Most of the circuit as well looks like it's on the other side of the board, which was also the story on the newest revision 033 boards. So if I just turn it over, we can see here, yeah, so you've got the diodes on the back, a small cap as well. That's pretty much identical to the 033s. The small resistor that you have here as well. I'm just double checking as well. The USB ports on the other boards go straight in to the APU. So I'm just checking that here as well. So they go through a little filter and some caps through to the other side of the board. So here we have the USB ports themselves. This is where they come through the other side of the board. And does that go straight into the APU? Yes, it does. I should have got to this a little bit sooner, but the board revision that I have is EDM 041. The latest revision I've worked on personally is an EDM 033. Here on the older board, it's actually very common to find a short to ground on these caps. This is the new board. Let me switch over to the old board to show you where I'm talking about. For my fellow technicians, you will know exactly where I'm talking about. It's just about down here where you have the F7501 fuse, these caps here, I'm assuming are what resemble the other ones. Or, unless you have the caps here that resemble the ones that I just showed you because they're next to the MOSFET, in which case we're actually missing protection here. Yeah, so that is true. It was the bigger caps that I just showed you, and the smaller caps would usually sit on this side of the coil just along here, but we don't have that. So is that going to be a cause for concern if we do develop any shorts through this rail? Definitely going to be one to look out for. And this is the connector for the disk drive. Now, personally, I think this might be a common cause for failure with people developing faults on their PS5, in my opinion. Now, I can also see that, again, you have some solder that hasn't gone all the way over the pins. You can see some copper showing. especially if I do it from like this angle, you can see. So I don't know how strong this connector is going to be. Does it have any wiggle at all? A tiny bit. Can you see it's got a tiny bit of wiggle? My worry is that people who may be a little bit heavy-handed, who buy a disk drive later on down the line, and they go to force in the disk drive to that connector, are they at risk of damaging that connector? I think so personally. We saw it all the time with the fan connector on the PS5 original consoles, where people were a little bit rough with it, and this is more exposed than that. As you saw originally, there was no protective film covering it. Some people, when they remove the disk drive, might lever it too much and it might cause it to snap. So I can see that as being, like, the design is amazing in terms of what they're trying to achieve. The simplicity of taking a disk drive and putting it and swapping it out is really, really good. But playing devil's advocate, I can see that causing a few faults. There isn't really much more to discuss, if I'm being honest with you. I like the form factor. It's a lot smaller than the previous. Taking it apart was fairly easy as long as you've got some moderate experience behind you. I'm not going to measure stuff in this video. That's not what it's for. It was just, again, first looks. I am just a bit shocked about that liquid metal and leaving the dry spot that it did. It is just ridiculous. I do have one favor to ask today. Phil, aka The Coder, is a content creator here in the UK. He's very, very close to hitting 100k subscribers. A lot of my audience have come over from Phil's channel anyway, so a lot of you are very familiar with his work. He does so much for the repair community and has done a lot for other creators that I think it's time that we give a little bit back because he's so close to 100k subs on YouTube. I think at the time of filming this, he's maybe 1,500 people away, and that will be a very small amount of people who actually watch this video to go over and subscribe. If you're somebody who enjoys watching repairs and you haven't heard of Phil for whatever reason, I'll leave a link down below in the description. Please go and support him and get him to 100,000 subscribers. Let me know what you thought of the PS5 Slim teardown in the comment section down below. I actually can't wait to work on these PS5 Slims when they're faulty. And also keep an eye out on my eBay because I will be selling this exact console, obviously with the warranty sticker taken off, but it's in pristine condition. Thank you so much for watching and sticking around to the end. If you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button. If you're new around here, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.